It was clear from the final battle with Lilith to the credit roll that there is so much more to the story of Diablo 4 that will be explored in an upcoming DLC. From Neyrel's fate as the new Wanderer with a Soul Stone in a post-Diablo 4, to that of Mephisto and the Primes. So let's discuss the ending of Diablo 4 and break down what will possibly happen in the story to come.
Choose wisely.
As a much-needed recap to give context, it goes without saying the final encounter of Diablo 4 is where the explanation should truly begin, as it frames the epilogue's drama both on-screen and within external readings. We know the fight between Lilith and Inarius was merely the curtain from which the Lord of Hatred weaves the newest chapter in his great plot. From the beginning, when he saved the Wanderer from an abrupt end by the bitter cold, to intervening in our adventures several more times, to the revelations that even without Lilith or Elias to lead them on, the demonic and cultist hordes are still driven on in hatred's name, and not necessarily in Lilith's.
This rain of blood, the sign we've waited for.
As the Lord
God, they will.
They mention the Lord of Hatred.
Mephisto.
What? That can't be. Elias owned this cult, and Lilith owned him.
Or even unto the final encounter, when Mephisto allows himself to be once more imprisoned within a soul stone, denying Lilith's vie for the ability to absorb his power. The course of events seemed to be exactly as Mephisto has allowed to pass. Infuriated, Lilith assaults the Wanderer as Neyrel returns to Sanctuary, stone in hand, and we remain behind to fend off the Daughter of Hatred. After the battle, with the form we're too familiar with, and what can only be surmised as her battle form, spoken of time and again in the reference to the Purge, when Lilith assumed a form of fang and claw, laying low the rebel angels and demons who helped to create Sanctuary and its inhabitants, with her dying breath, she issues a prophetic warning of the future, one where mankind will be alone in the fight with the lords of hell, flashes of Mephisto in his true form within our mind's eye. The truth in full view, that Mephisto is indeed our next great obstacle, and one we're ill-prepared to face alone. Neyrel's Gambit. It's after the final fight with Lilith that we learn Neyrel never returned to Lorith as she said she would, instead absconding to Sanctuary with Mephisto in hand, trapped in the Soul Stone that Donan had attuned to house Lilith. A seemingly odd thing, as it housed Mephisto instead, but as we see Lilith in her quote-unquote true form, resembling an image we see in Rathma's necropolis, it lends credit to the concept that Lilith is little more than a demonic construct infused with Mephisto's essence, and it becomes more apparent how either are interchangeably the stone's inhabitant, as it is attuned to hatred. In the final cutscene of the game, we see Neyrel on a quest that leads out across the Twin Seas with little more context than she's keeping the stone with her, believing she can resist Mephisto's influence until she can find a way to deal with the prime evil bound to the stone and the possibility that something bad may happen indeed. But as we know in the past, something terrible will happen, not if, but when. But her journey does not go quietly as the stone bearer, and neither is it without immediate consequence. Book of Lorith, Neyrel's Path. As we learn in the Book of Lorith, we're given both greater context to Neyrel's actual plan, the path she took in her journey, and what followed in her wake. Just as the Dark Wanderer, who, as the warrior, believed he was heading to the east to free himself of Diablo's terror, he would travel from Tristram to Kurast to set his brothers free and return to hell. His misguided attempts at freedom being the machinations of Diablo. And in his wake, he would leave behind terror and ruin. So too did Neyrel, leaving an upheaval of hatred in her wake. Departing from the Horodric Vault, Neyrel passed through Yelesna, and noted by Lorith, which has fallen into chaos at the time of his writing, noting the darkness that follows a prime evil passing through Sanctuary. She then travels to Lilith's cabin, leaving a note in an emptied ale bottle, a form of correspondence that would become quite normal between the two, as Neyrelle would make her way into the dry steppes through Kezhistan, and finally to Kurast to barter for passage across the Twin Seas to the Tamo Mountains, a region we visit in Diablo Immortal at Mount Zavane, where she hopes to enlist aid from the monks in order to better able to maintain resistance against the will of Mephisto, while Lilith, on a similar pilgrimage, moves across Sanctuary, chronicling artifacts and knowledge to aid Neyrelle in her struggles against such otherworldly influences with his own Herodric tome. The next chapter, remembering back to a few lines of text from Rathma's prophecy. I saw a child give birth to a mother, as hatred's sun set and that of terror and destruction dawned, and knowing full well that Mephisto will manifest in some form, we can surmise that in the next two expansions already in development, we will quite likely be following a similar path as Lilith and Neyrelle moving through the lower reaches of Kezhistan to Kurast and then across the Twin Seas, return to Khandaris, and from there we'll either follow Neyrelle to the Tamo Mountains or retracing Lilith's path to Skovos, Westmarch, Tristram, Ariat, and then to Tamo, west, instead of heading east, this time west, as the sun sets.
We travel together, east. Always. Into the east.
Ariat is quite likely a soon-to-be revisited region, with the Book of Bulkathos coming out quite soon, telling the story of the legendary barbarian ancient. So we know Neyrelle's path, what Lilith intends and their goals, and also the destruction left in her wake. But as far as how Mephisto will return exactly, well, that remains to be seen. Diablo 4 threw us quite a good many curveballs, many of which we will be discussing soon, so how the Lord of Hatred is meant to return can only be speculated of, but on the one hand, Neyrelle makes a prime candidate for him to hollow out. On the other hand, maybe just one hand. Perhaps Neyrelle fails in a pilgrimage and is unable to resist Mephisto's influence. Perhaps she succeeds and another falls victim to the Prime's machinations. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, until next time, Wanderer.
I spent a lot of time learning this code, so I hope you remember how to read it, Lorath. Because you are the last Horadrim now. My mother would have wanted me to stay with you. She believed the Horadrim had all the answers. I don't know if she'd recognize this person I'm becoming. It's hard for me to think about her right now. But then I remember you and Donan. You weren't all-knowing Horadrim. You were bitter. You were uncertain. But you were always true friends. That's what I hold on to. Because there is so much further to go. Your imperfection gave me hope. And we will need it to face what comes next. To face him and his brothers. I don't know how much time I have. But there has to be a better answer. And I have to find it. Alone. I know you want to go with me. But people have already died because I was not careful enough. I can't risk you too. If I've misjudged, the world is going to need you to survive and clean up the mistakes I leave behind. I know you don't want to hear this, but you don't get to quit. Not again. Wish me well, Lorath. Because if everything works out as I am hoping, we will never see each other again.